So in this lesson, we're going to start building out our donut form. If we command click through to our donut form component, we can start to create some markup. Of course, a form begins with a form element. Now, a traditional HTML form starts with an action. We don't actually need this, and this is for the default behavior in the browser. We're not going to adopt the traditional approach. We're going to intercept the form submit event with JavaScript and then post things off to the server, eventually with an HTTP request. So our form, we're going to give it a nice class name. We'll say donut-form. So inside is where we're going to then start coding out all of our form input elements. Before we can go any further, it's a good idea to then register our form with Angular. For this, we need to declare a template variable. I like to just use the word of form. We don't need to call it anything fancy, and we simply need to provide the value of ngForm. So what this essentially does is register our form as an Angular form. So Angular behind the scenes is then going to look for different directives and then start to build a form model for us in the background. It will then keep track of changes and lots of different things. As you can see, we have a TypeScript error. We have no directive found with export as ngForm. Now this is because we need to import our forms module. We could do this in our admin module. For this, we can simply import the forms module. We can hit enter, and then this grabs it from our Angular/forms. We can take the import value, and because we are importing another module, we want to specify it as another argument in this array. So when we save this out, you can see that my editor is now reformatted things here. But if we close this off, we now have our ngForm, which gives us a reference with the type of ngForm, which is our template variable reference, which then gives us an object of the type ngForm. And we know that this is working because we have a capital N, whereas here we have a lowercase n. So this is declaring the ngForm. The reference is then returned to our form variable. So this is super because this has now registered our form with Angular. So what does this actually mean? It means that we have a live object. If we then save this out, we have object. Now what we actually want to change this to is form.value. This is also going to give us an object. And for us to view it, we're going to use the JSON pipe. Now, because we don't actually have any form fields, that means that we haven't registered any inputs, which means that here, all we have is an empty object. Now, one thing I like to do is wrap this inside of a pre-tag. This will allow us to have some nicer formatting. As we build out our form, we can then see the results of what's happening live in the DOM, so we don't have to keep turning to a console log perhaps. So that's it for this lesson, a short, quick introduction to Angular Forms. We have added inside of our admin module this forms module, which then allows us to access Angular's template forms. We've then bound our ngForm to a form template reference, and we're then going to use this as our debugging zone as we then build out the form throughout the rest of this chapter. And there's lots more to come from submitting our form and more advanced concepts such as handling our validation states.